and I decided to do something on blue plaques. So there's a lot of blue plaques coming up. Okay, so if you want. Richard Cobden, who was a Liberal politician who was very influential in the Cornwall Acts and all the rest of it. He lived on Key Street in Manchester, which is the building which now became Owens College and then formed part of the university. You probably recognise this building, which still stands. Hampton Ainsworth, forgotten novelist, basically. He was a very popular in Victorian times. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of him, but he wrote loads of stuff. And one of my teachers at school used to go on about him ad nauseam. Anyway, the plaque is on King Street. What used to be the Nat West Bank, and I don't know what it is now. Restaurant or something, but it's quite a modern building. It's not the original building, but the plaque stands in King Street. He collected works of William Harris, and there are dozens and dozens of them. I noticed that some library in America, or some booksellers in America, are offering a set of original complete works for something like £12,000. So there must be some value to collectors. The Gaiety Theatre, which was on Peter Street, it's now a Starbucks, I think. But it was opposite the Midland Hotel, effectively. And it was formed by Annie Horniman, a fabulously wealthy tea heiress, who was also instrumental in setting up the Abbey Theatre in Dublin. And she set up the Gaiety Theatre as one of the first repertory theatres in the country. And she was very kind of important in the development of the theatre. And the Manchester playwrights, whose names escape me at the moment, but they were first seen here. And people like Sybil Thorndike got their first sense of fame here. Okay, this is what it looked like. You may remember it. I don't know. I sort of vaguely remember it. And there is a connection to the Elders in that when it became a theatre, a cinema, one of our elders used to work there as an usherette. Any guesses who?
Maureen.
Maureen? I think it was Maureen.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't
Maureen.
Judith. Was it Judith?
No.
Oh, right. Doreen.
It was Doreen.
Doreen.
Oh, right.
There's a picture of Annie Horniman. And there is a famous painting of her somewhere around. It used to be in the Library Theatre, but I think it's somewhere in Home now. Peterloo, which is on the walls of the Free Trade Hall, which is now the Radisson Hotel, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's only 60,000 people. It's not exactly the site where it was, but it's the nearest building, I suppose. And for some reason or other, it also gets a red plaque with a bit more information on it.
Were there really 60,000 people at it? I didn't think it was that many.
Yeah, well, they came from all over the place. This was a representation of the chaos that happened on the day. So this area would be what is behind the Midland Hotel now and Central Station, Central whatever it's called, Central Exhibition Centre. So James Sadler, first English aeronaut and the fire balloon made a successful ascent from this place on 4th of October 1784. And anybody tell me where Sadler's Square is? This pub, which was called the Pilcrow, but it was called the Pilcrow, which I thought was rather nice. We all know what the Pilcrow is, don't we?
No.
No.
Okay, well, that's a Pilcrow. you see it in manuscripts, and it's a kind of form of abbreviation. You see it in text and stuff. But sadly, it's now changed its name to the Sadler's Cat. And there's a picture of Mr. Sadler in his balloon sailing over Manchester. 1783, I think it was. Francis Hodgson Burnett, you remember from the children's book, The Secret Garden.
Oh, yes.
Amongst other things, but she was born in Cheetham Hill Road. Mrs. Gaskell.
Leghorn. No,
That's a great leghorn, isn't it? Is that a kind of chicken? Or is that a leghorn? I don't know. But, anyway, she lived in Manchester for a long time. When she married Reverend Gaskell, who ran the church on Cross Street opposite.
Yeah.
They lived on with the Plymouth Grove, just outside near the back of what is now the Manchester Royal Infirmary, or the hospitals. But the house is still there. You can go visit. At one time, it was belonged to the university, but it's been done up and set up and visited. I think it's open 3 or 4 days a week. And there is the plaque to Mrs. Gaskell. There's a picture of Mrs. Gaskell. Charlotte Bronte is slightly connected. She brought her father to Manchester to have some his cataracts done in the 1840s, 1850s, and they stayed round the corner from Mrs. Gaskell on what is now Upper Brook Street, I think, Boundary Street West, which was also Upper Brook Street. And while she was here, she visited Mrs. Gaskell, and they became great friends. She wanted Jane Eyre amongst other things. And Mrs. Gaskell, eventually, after Charlotte died, wrote a biography of Charlotte. So Charles Halley lived and worked in Manchester for a long time as a musician and conductor, as celebrated. And he lived in this house in Victoria Park, Daisy Bank Road, I think, which is still there. Still very much desirable property. The plaque also commemorates Ford Maddox Brown, who also lived in the same house, not at the same time, but they both lived in this particular house. Ford Maddox Brown, the artist, the Raphaelite, famed for, amongst other things, his murals in the Great Hall at Manchester. And the murals are pretty fantastic and romanticised and full of half-truths and non-truths, but nevertheless, they are splendid works of art. Captain Sir John Alcock, who with Lieutenant Sir Arthur Whitton Brown made the first non-stop aerial crossing of the Atlantic, 14th of June 1990, making the crossing 16 hours. Gosh, 16 hours in that kind of open air plane, basically. But it was from Ireland. So, sorry?
It's an amazing feat.
It is, yeah. And also $50,000 must have been quite something in those days. Okay, here's my favourite one. Rishi Sunak, 19th of January 2023, received a fixed penalty notice for being filmed passing this spot in a car. This is he was travelling between Blackpool and Manchester last year, and somebody has stuck up a blue plaque to celebrate. Bonnie Prince Charlie came to Manchester in 1745 as part of the attempt to overthrow the Jacobite rebellion. He arrived in Manchester and he stayed on Market Street in Mr. Dickinson's house. Friedrich Engels, we all know about him, social philosopher, writer. history in the English-speaking people, English working classes. Worked with Marx, very much involved with life in Manchester in the 19th century. And there is a new plaque and this fantastic statue outside home.
I think that's great.
The one that was rescued from a skip it was in two pieces. When the revolution came, or when the Iron Curtain was supposedly removed, this was found in the skip, and they decided to bring it to Manchester. I think it's a great statue, and they haven't tried to tart it up at all.
No, it's fabulous. Yeah.
Mr. Elliot Verdon, famous for the A.B. Rowe aircraft company, opened their first workshop on Great Anchor Street. And this is the building, the area, which is now being converted into expensive flats. Some of them £1 million.
Wasn't when you used to work there.
But it looks like a prison, doesn't it, really? Certainly looks like a mill, but even now, I imagine it's pretty fantastic inside, but from the exterior, it's not that prepossessing. But it still retained its name as the A.B. Rowe building. There's a picture of this triplane in 1909, proudly advertising Lambert Butler's fags. Ellen Wilkinson, the firebrand statesman, she was the first female cabinet minister. She was at one time a member of the British Communist Party. Educated at Manchester University, but born in very humble circumstances in the city of Manchester. But worked tirelessly education and so. She never married, but as my grandmother might have said, she probably didn't die wondering. She had lots of friends. John Dalton. John Dalton Street was opened in 1846 in honour of the famous chemist who announced the atomic theory, which became the foundation of modern chemistry. Blah, 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 blah. President of Manchester Literary and Philosophical Society from 1816 to 1844. And here's a picture of him at deep in thought. It's a great picture, isn't it? It's very kind of Dickensian, that kind of the last instance. Howard Spring. Anybody remember Howard Spring? But he wrote loads and loads of. He's very, very popular. My mum liked his work. She's much younger, I suppose. But he was born. Well, he lived in Manchester. A lot of his books were made into films. My Son was made into film. But Spencer Tracy, I think, he was Famous the Spur was one of his books, I think, as well, which was also made into a film with Michael O'Brien. Dr. Hyde, forgive me for this, I think it's called Chaim Weizmann. Dr. C.W., who lived in Manchester for formative years, 1940 to 1917, and he then became the first president of the state of Israel. Now it's a picture of him, a great picture actually. And here is back in Chorlton again, Simpson Road, Chorlton. Doris Speed, Annie Walker, yeah. And the connection to the elders is the fact that Yvonne Bremer now lives in Simpson Road, but I don't think she lives in Annie Walker's house. But there you have Doris Speed, LBE. Robert Donat, the film star, actor. Was born and brought up in Whittington before he moved to being famous. Film star actor. There's a picture of him. I think this is probably from Goodbye, Mr. Chips. That's it. That's today's gospel.
Very good.
Well done. Thank you. Thank you.